Now then, Rishi Sunak will announce his spending review on Wednesday, and aside from all the money being promised for the defence industry and tackling climate change, there's a big focus on local authorities. In fact, he is a former local government minister, so he's expected to help out his old friends in local authorities. Councils have been calling for extra funding in the wake of the pandemic. There was talk that no one would be left behind, and now there are complaints that actually councils aren't getting the money that they need, with services overstretched as they try to keep the public safe. Tomorrow, Parliament will be debating the issue, debate being led by Rushanara, the Labour MP for Bethnal Green and Bow, and she joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So it paints a picture for us. What is life like in local authorities right now?
It's really, really difficult. One of the issues is that local authorities have had 10 years of austerity. What we've seen is very dramatic cuts over the last 10 years of some £15 billion. And also in that time, one of the things that really helped poorer local authorities like mine with high levels of inequality and child poverty is the central government grants, and those have been phased out. Then on top of that, you've had COVID. And what we've got is a government having promised local authorities to do whatever it takes to save lives, which we welcomed. And local authorities then made that expenditure. In my local authority, COVID has led to an additional cost of about £30 million. And although the government's put in some money, it hasn't addressed the gap in terms of income, for instance. So in total, my local authority lost about £35 million of income because of lockdowns and so on. And this is the pattern up and down the country. And the other striking point is that poorer local authorities with higher needs like mine have been hit the hardest.
And I suppose, and that then ends up having a knock-on effect, doesn't it, in terms of public health and the risk of the virus spreading. Is there an impact on local authority incomes as well as a result of whether it's council tax or business rates and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so as I was saying, the income that local authorities would have got, including from things like parking, fees, leisure centres, all of those that when they were closed, meant that the income obviously depleted. So in the case of our local authority, it was some £35 million during the first lockdown. Obviously, those costs will continue to grow because we've had another period of lockdown. So they're really crying out for help. And what I'm looking for in the Chancellor's statement on Wednesday, and this debate is ahead of that, and we've all made representations, the LGA, local authorities, others throughout this pandemic for additional support. What I'm hoping the Chancellor will do is provide that additional support to local authorities because they're at the front line, and now local authorities are having to address the failures of the national privately funded £12 billion worth of testing and tracing that's gone horribly wrong. Local authorities like mine are stepping in, working with local health providers to do the contact tracing, to do additional work in order to make sure people are properly tested so that we can bring down the infection rates and save lives. They've been at the forefront across the board. And then, of course, there's other areas like social care, adult social care, children in special needs, which is a big problem in areas like mine, where the funding, that there will have to be cuts, and we don't want to see those cuts in those services which are vulnerable. But you will have seen last week, a lot of local authorities have said that they are very concerned because now there's no room for any manoeuvre in terms of making any savings without it hitting frontline services like adult social care, for instance.
Do you have a sort of ballpark figure of how much more money local authorities need? And then I suppose the billion dollar question is, where do you think that money should come from?
Well, look, local authorities need an additional overall across all local authorities £5 billion. And the question is, you take the kinds of mix of services they're providing, from cleaning our streets and social behaviour, working with local police officers. They're even funding police numbers because of the cuts of 20,000 police officers over the last 10 years, that my local authorities had to pay for extra police officers to bring down antisocial behaviour. So they are operating at so many different levels to protect communities. And this government is ideologically opposed to supporting local authorities. They're much happier dishing out money to their donors and private contractors, even if they don't do the job, rather than protecting local public services. So what we're saying is this is value for money. that is better spent because it will save lives and protect people. The final thing I'd say is that the Towns Fund, for instance, has been, that's nearly well over £3 billion. The government's been found wanting there because what they've done is they've targeted funding to target conservative seats. So they're politicising the use of public money on an industrial scale. They need to allocate funding on a fair formula based on need. Now, you take a constituency like mine and many others, where the death rate due to the pandemic, in our case, during the height of the pandemic and the first lockdown, was the fourth highest age standardised in the country, with higher numbers of people who are vulnerable. The government's focus should be on targeting resources in areas with most need, that's where, if you put the investment in, you are likely to save lives. But also, it's about using public money appropriately, not for political gain and political ends. And we're seeing a pattern of this during this emergency, and that is not acceptable.
Rushanara, unfortunately, the line seems to be right at the very outer limits of what it will take. So I'm going to let you go there before we lose you altogether. There's Labour MP Rushanara Ali there.